Welcome to this week's edition of Hockey Unfiltered. I'm Todd Lewis, joined by former professional hockey player Justin Bourne. Justin, how you doing this week? Ready to go?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
No, I'm really good. Okay. As usual, the routine will be with this show. We've got a number of topics that we want to talk about and explore. You can follow us along between the programs as well. At Justin Bourne is Justin's Twitter account, and mine is at Todd Lewis Sports. Okay, first of all, we wanted to talk about so many teams have been affected by injuries this year. Not just one or two players, but a lot of teams have really had to deal with injuries. It's inevitable throughout the season, but some have not only survived, but thrived. Most notable to me, the New York Rangers. I was pretty down on this team before the season started. I wasn't sure that they were going to be able to even make the playoffs, but a couple of things I think have played out. First of all, Henrik Lundqvist is a stud in goal. He's just fantastic. John Tortorella has gotten even more out of his roster than I was expecting. When you've got guys like Gaborik, Frolov, Prospal, Chris Drury, Ryan Callahan, and now Fedotenko and Dubinsky out, it's incredible how well they've done this year.
Yeah, no, it truly is incredible because I was with you before the season. I was certainly not taken aback, in awe of their wonderful roster. And quite frankly, I've never been a guy who's been a huge fan of John Tortorella as a coach. I always thought he was sort of okay, kind of an old school motivational guy. I didn't know if he was, up on the technical side of the game like some of the other people. So to see him guide this ship through the icy waters here, I'm really impressed with what's going on over there in Madison Square Garden.
Not only in the playoffs, but well in a playoff position. These latest two injuries might really hurt them, though, with Dubinsky and Fedotenko both being out for a couple of weeks. I know their call-ups from the AHL have been stellar, but this might even be too much for them to ask. But, hopefully they can hang on. It's only a couple of weeks, and they can survive and get going, because the Rangers are going to be a really interesting team, I think, moving into the postseason.
Yeah, just looking at the Eastern Conference standings, if they start to get some of their talent back, towards playoffs, and they get healthy, and they're riding the back of Henrik Lundqvist, who, I think he might be the best goalie in the NHL this year. I know everyone loves Tim Thomas, and Tim's obviously had a fantastic season, but Vezina has a .960 save percentage in January right now. He's just playing out of his mind, and they're going to be scary, I think, if they get a decent seed going into the playoffs.
Yeah, another team that's had to battle a lot of injuries, the St. Louis Blues. And I know you're really high on this team. You like their game, and they've managed to as well survive. And they're on the outside of the playoff picture right now, but only by a couple of points in the very tight West.
And they're young and talented, so I've kind of been predicting them to be really dangerous for a while now and waiting for it. So it's good to see, the start of the year, I thought this was going to be the year, and they were sort of derailed by injuries too. But Oshie's back now, and once you have guys like Backus and Boys and Steen and just so much great young talent there and solid decor, they added Halak in the offseason, and I think the way last year Detroit was hurt almost all year, got healthy right before playoffs, was a 5 seed. But, Phoenix was a good team. They went into Phoenix, and honestly, Detroit was definitely the better team in that case. And I think you could see that St. Louis get sort of a lower seed, get healthy towards the end of playoffs, and knock up one of the top dogs in the first round.
Yeah, St. Louis has just got to stop signing guys that have to get through waivers before they can get them in their lineup. Spatos got plucked by the Nashville Predators, and Kyle Wellwood just gets picked up by the San Jose Sharks. But, hopefully things start to work out for them. I want to play a little game this week, too, Justin. Let's pick one team each in the East and the West. We'll start in the West and say which team that's on the outside of the playoffs right now is going to make it in before the end of the season.
All right. I think on the West, I will stick with St. Louis because I do think they're going to climb. They're in 10th right now, so they barely qualify. That whole side of the West is bizarre. A few points separate you from, I think it's 2nd to 14th is 15 points or something. But so I'll take St. Louis, and then on the East, I think Carolina's good. I think Cam Ward is having a pretty decent year. I don't think they're in playoffs right now, so maybe it's maybe they're in 8th or 9th, but I think Carolina is going to take probably one of those last two spots in the East.
Okay, in the Western Conference, I like the San Jose Sharks just because they have a lot of scoring power. I know it's pretty streaky sometimes, especially Danny Heatley, but they've got enough scoring power. I like this team. I like what Doug Wilson has done. I like the way he sets up this team. I think his acquisitions of grabbing Kyle Wellwood, picking Ben Eager up, they'll give a little bit of energy. They're both better skaters, and I don't think he's finished yet either. I think they'd like to get a defenseman. I think their goaltending will be just good enough. But I think the San Jose Sharks will manage to get in. In the East, I think you're absolutely right. If I've got to pick one, since I made up the game, I guess I have to, is I'll pick Carolina as well. But everybody else in the Eastern Conference, I think it's over. I think it's decided. I don't think there's any way that any of those teams are getting back in.
No, those bottom 5 teams, just looking at the standings, are just impressively bad. The fact that the Florida Panthers are 10th in the East is just... I don't even know what to say. It's not fair for the teams in the Western Conference that every team's in the playoff hunt. They're dogging each other, hurting each other all year long. And, one out of every 2 games, basically, a team in the East just gets a freebie. So, it's pretty ugly in the bottom half of the East.
It does bring up the question, too, that maybe we don't have playoff teams decided by the top 8 in the conference. I know we have the divisions, and the top team in each division gets in, and that gives you a number 1 through 3 seed perhaps. Maybe we need to look at the playoff structure a little differently as well and get the best teams in the playoffs. You'll still have teams fighting right down to the last game of the season. It's just, it doesn't matter whether you're in the East or in the West. You'll just be accumulating points to get you into the playoff picture.
Yeah, you would eventually have people argue that, say, the East Coast, we saw the Eastern Conference, we saw Philly and Montreal both go deep in playoffs, who are 7 and 8 seeds. So, those teams aren't, once they get in there, they're not hopeless. But I'm with you, that shouldn't be the point. If you can't get enough points to get, farther up in the standings, in the Eastern Conference, when you are getting some freebies from those bottom 5 teams, there's no way you should get in playoffs when a team like maybe the Ducks or Sharks or Blues is going to miss it on the Western side, and they're a far better team.
And that would make the regular season more meaningful then, too, wouldn't it? Isn't what everybody talks about? Make these regular season games as important as possible right down to the end. Well, if you don't get points, you don't get into the playoffs. East or West, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it makes the non-conference games more interesting, too. A lot of times when they go over, you lose your 2 points to a team you have nothing to do with. Conference division's not the end of the world. So, yeah, definitely I think that would up the value of the regular season.
All right. We had so much to talk about. We're going to have to cut it off here. But next week we'll have much more. We may get into the shootout, which I know we talked a little bit about last week, and the pros and cons of the shootout. That would have an impact on the playoff seedings as well. So we'll promote that. We'll talk shootout for sure next week, Justin.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for joining us. For Justin Bourne, our producer Dave Turner, I'm Todd Lewis. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter. @JTBourne is Justin's Twitter account. @Todd Lewis Sports is mine. See you next time.
See ya.